I'm Colleen Almeida Smith. I am the Director of Program Services at the Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma.
And I'm Omar Vicencio. I'm the project specialist at the Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma. So our project was to evaluate our capacity to distribute frozen meals to a select number of schools to serve students because we wanted to provide ready-to-eat, accessible, delicious, and nutritious meals to food insecure students who otherwise have received shelf-stable products from pantries and they don't know how to cook those shelf-stable products. So it was one of those things that we wanted to provide more friendly versions of our product to students. So I believe Colleen can also chime in as well.
Through the School and Campus Pantry program, we chose 10 schools, and I think it was really just trying to see whether how they would respond to it, and whether by providing those meals we could actually make a difference in food security and nutrition security. So we did it at two different sets of pantries. The first in the fall, we did campus pantry, our campus pantry program, which is colleges and technical schools. So we did use some career techs, and then like a Oklahoma State University Institute of Technology, which is a 4-year school. But then in the spring, we used some school pantries, and our school pantries serve like middle school, junior highs, and high schools.
Some interesting notes is that we have several campuses within the campus pantry program that are considered private school or considered flagship schools within the state, right? If you consider a private school, you might be like, hey, these students might come from privileged backgrounds where they might have the money to sustain themselves. Well, that's not always the case, especially nowadays with inflation. I believe families and students are really feeling the pinch. And sometimes students need to dedicate themselves fully to their studies and not be able to work, right? And one of the most interesting things about this program is that we didn't know who we're going to serve. We just wanted to serve. So even though the campus pantry coordinators selected 10, like they pre-identified 10 students for each campus to receive these meals, we didn't know who we were going to serve. And the awesome thing is that we served somebody from Zimbabwe who was receiving their doctorates in cybersecurity. And you might imagine that, and you're like, man, they might not need it. Well, they come from they come outside of the United States and they will have student visas. And that student visa does not allow them to work. So you might wonder how they're going to sustain themselves. So sometimes they will have to choose between going to class and making meals or et cetera, or just getting by. And now they didn't have to worry about that at all. They had a delicious and nutritious meal that they could just pop into the microwave and continue learning, because nobody can learn on an empty stomach. Here at the Food Bank in Eastern Oklahoma, we have a state-of-the-art culinary center, and we put that bad boy to use. So we have chefs on staff, and they create incredible meal menus for many of our programs. And for this project in particular, they created a meal menu that was diverse, was nutritious, and had some fan favorites such as breakfast, because students love waffles, sausages, and eggs in the morning, and that's what gets them going. So we leaned into what resources we had here at the food bank, and we had experienced and well-known chefs create these meals on behalf of students, because we want to make sure students have a dignified experience. This is what this grant really provided for us, is to explore if students would like this, but also lean into our services that we have created to provide a dignified experience. Some of these students, they college students, and they might not have the cooking skills at the moment, or to, create meals out of pantry items. So if you go to a pantry, you might get some canned tuna, canned corn, and tomato sauce. Well, you tell me, what kind of meal does that make, right? So our culinary experts really took on this project and created meals for these students that they would know for a fact they would receive on a weekly basis. And these meals just took away that worry about cooking, getting other supplies, etc. So they had ready to make or ready to eat meals right then and there each week.
One of the things that surprised me in doing this project was like everybody talked about how students may not necessarily have these cooking skills to make the meals if they
Mhm.
just go to the pantry and get shelf-stable items.
Mhm.
But the students that we talked to actually had culinary skills, and they were just like, it's not whether I can cook, it's do I have time to cook? Do I have the other ingredients that I need to make a meal? Do I have the kitchen utensils? Because,
Mhm.
I may not be living at my parents', I may be living in an apartment and I don't have all the pots and pans I need to create meals. And so it was just really interesting to see that not only did it provide them a nutritious meal, but it like relieved their burden of,
Mhm.
the mental burden of everything else that goes into meal prep. And so I was really inspired by that because they really just talked about how it gave them time to study. It gave them time to work on other things that they needed to work on rather than, put all the mental effort into do I have food? Do I have enough to make a meal? Do I have, you know, the time to make a meal? And so I thought that really to me that was a real benefit that I didn't expect was the time that it gave back and the mental capacity that it gave back to the students.
So we had some of the students use these meals not for only for themselves, but for their family members as well. So think about it. We had students who were college students, and there were mothers and fathers, non-traditional students that were going back to get an education to better their lives. And now they didn't have to worry what they're going to feed their families. They didn't have to worry about what they're going to feed their 3-year-old daughter because their 3-year-old daughter loved our breakfast meals. It's like you have to kind of think about it. It's not only the students that we're impacting their families, we're impacting their livelihoods, impacting the way they conduct work, such as how Colleen mentioned earlier. So we're really alleviating all the pressure. I wouldn't say all the pressure, but a significant amount of pressure in getting meals.
Yeah, and I think the pantry coordinators really liked the program in that they felt like it was simple, it was easy to execute, and they were able to, there was no problem in getting students to volunteer for this, pilot program. There was no problem getting students to respond to meal reviews. And we got an overwhelming amount of meal reviews. And then we also got, pre and post assessment questionnaires filled out. And I think it went a lot easier than I expected. I mean, and I think Omar is a super organized planner and that, just helped a lot. But it really did go so well and so smoothly.
Due to the massive success of this program, we had other funders interested in securing funding to expand this, not only to the 10 original schools that were on the project with the written evidence, but rather all of Tulsa County. And we're looking to also secure funding for our rural schools as well. And because of that, what we're going to tweak and make better is that instead of just delivering directly to 10 students each week, we're going to place items online. We're further streamlining this process. We're going to put things online, and coordinators are going to be able to choose which meal boxes, which meal menu to choose from. So they're going to have more choices as well. And on top of that, it's going to be available to all students at the campus pantry or the school pantry. So all students can be benefiting from the frozen meals that we make available.
We're really going to scale this program. I mean, by doing it in such based on research, like we could come back and say to our funders, like this is a proven method of alleviating food insecurity in these populations. I mean, we have evidence that it works. This is not a guess on our part. This is not, us making assumptions that we think this will work. This is proven, and that, makes funders and donors think we have confidence in the result. And so the ability to scale it up has just been just fantastic. And it by providing it online for our pantry coordinators to order, it takes away like literally Omar was delivering the meals every week. He would load them up in a food bank car and deliver them, to all of the sites. And so now we've got our transportation department involved. So they're taking that on. And these orders of the frozen meals will be distributed with their regular orders, the other shelf stable goods and that they already can order online. But in addition, being able to give it to any student, and they'll be able to set what limits they want on the students, so for the pilot program, we did 4 meals a week. With the new program, they'll be able to determine, do I want to cap it at 4? Do I want to cap it at 6? Do I, whatever, they think works for their student population. So I think that'll be really beneficial for students because, they were asking like, could we get more than 4? And, obviously with our funding, they couldn't, but, it was great to know that they were so in demand, and they were really nutritious meals. They weren't just like if you go to the store and you buy, the cheapest frozen meal that you can find and throw it in your microwave. Yes, that's going to be food and it's going to be filling, but it's not necessarily going to be the healthiest of ingredients. And so that's what our culinary center really concentrated on. Like everything had a protein, grains, starches, vegetables, and so like it really did provide nutritious meals that was easy for them, a no-brainer, like, oh yeah, I can heat this up and I'll be satisfied. And that is one of the things that we did learn from the last one. From the first cohort, there wasn't enough food. Like the college students were saying, hey, it was great, but it didn't fill me up. And so in our second cohort, when they redesigned the menu, they looked at, adding more protein or, instead of, 1 little chicken breast, maybe, 2 in there. And so to kind of bulk up the meals. And I think that's really helped, in the second cohort for us, it really worked. And we're seeing, that's going to be a benefit. One of the things that we saw last year is the inflation has made the meals cost more, and so that's, our dollars aren't stretching as far as we'd hoped, but, still it's over the next 3 years, we have grant funding to make this, like to expand this. And I think that's really going to be beneficial.
One thing we like here at the food bank that we're looking at is that frozen meals is something that we are considering that might be the future of food banking to begin with. Traditionally food banks provide shelf-stable products, right? Your canned tuna, your canned corn, etc. Now we're thinking about pivoting and providing this to not only the school pantry program, but to many of our other programs and our partner agencies as well, right? So we're the only school pantry program in the nation, and that's not according to us. That's according to Feeding America, that's doing anything like this. So we further want to expand this to other food banks. If they would ask us for information, absolutely, we'll provide information. But we're looking to scale this up. We're looking to diversify our programs, who receives this. We can't really paint a picture in the next 5 years what exactly will happen, but our enthusiasm behind this is to scale up, diversify, and continue providing a dignified service to our partners, feeding partners, so they can provide a dignified service to their customers or neighbors in need.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've got is we've got another grant funding. So we're going to pilot this with some of our senior programs. So, they'll be able to, in addition to like a box of shelf-stable food that they normally get from us monthly, they'll be able to get like 4 frozen meals in addition to that. And so we're going to see whether it has the same benefits for them as it does for, the college students or high school students. I think one of the real big benefits of the Rooted in Evidence grant is allowing us to take the ideas behind program evaluation and apply it to other programs within the food bank. And so the senior pilot program with the frozen meals will be very similar. We'll have pre-assessment surveys, we'll have post-assessment surveys, and we'll be able to tweak it, in between if we need to. But I think that is going to help us just, better improve our programming to meet the needs of, people in our community, because we've gotten some of those tools from you guys, and that's just been really very, very helpful in us thinking about how to approach programs and program evaluation going forward.
And yeah, and just to piggyback to what Colleen is saying, is that something that really opened our eyes on being on rooted evidence is that maybe in previous years, our food bank, and I know many other food banks might be guilty of this, is that we feel good on serving people, but we might not have the data to support that. And what this grant really did is that it really forced us to evaluate our programs through the lens of how a researcher would do it, to see if these programs actually work. And we found out that it improved nutrition security and food security for our students. And with that information, like Colleen was saying, we can give that to our funders. And they're like, wow, this really, really works. Let's continue funding this. So the future of how we evaluate programs should be rooted in evidence. And that was the main thing to take away from being on this project, is that I'm not saying that our food bank was always guilty of this, but we are. And it made us realize that we can't just, operate based on feelings, because it feels good to serve people. Do we actually know the outcomes of this? Do we actually know what the data says? And thanks for you guys, we actually know that this works.
Right. We've been making a lot of assumptions about how our programs work. And so, having the tools to actually provide that data to back it up is just very satisfying. Being able to present, in our grant applications, like, we moved the needle. So if you continue to support this and help us expand the program, we hope to move the needle, across our service area. And so we're lucky to secure the funding for Tulsa County going forward. But, that really doesn't address the rural areas. So, that's our next step, is applying for a grant that would service more of our rural areas and our rural school and campus pantries.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, it's not that we're just collecting data like, hey, students, do you like this? Yes or no? And then they say, yeah, we do. We love it. No, we use evidence-based practices. We use USDA screeners, nutrition screeners. We use screeners that are used by research institutions, researchers, and those are credentialed. Those are respected. So if we go to a funders and like, hey, yeah, our meals improve food security, or food security, they're going to say, how did you prove that? Well, we use these evidence-based practices. It's not that we just sent out surveys on QR codes. No, we actually took the time to make a statistical analysis. And that's the most important thing that might separate what we're doing right now to what we did in the past, is that we're using fundamentally evidence-based practices.